Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Tales of the Valiant CR exposing Tales of the Valiant CR. I gotta get this down one day or the other. So today we are looking at another monster from Tales of the Valiant's books here for the Monster Vault and whatnot. And from the screenshot you may have figured out, or maybe not because it's kind of a generic character artwork, that we are looking at the Mage today. And with that, we're going to look at monsters with spells to see how these might play out. And I've already looked at this, so I'm not going to ruin anything for you. So hopefully, they'll be balanced, or maybe they won't be. We'll see how this goes. All right, now let's get into, deconstructing this Mage CR6 and see what we come up with. So right off the bat, we know we are looking at CR6, and with that, we are expecting these values here. 3 proficiency bonus, 14 to 16 AC, 140 hit points, 6 to 8 attack bonus, 44 to 49 DPR, and 14 to 16 save DC, and the DPR is damage per round. So from there, we will then jump down into our armor class. Now we know we have a base armor class of 10 or 13 with mage armor, so we do have that as a spell, and it has been added in here, so we can go ahead and add in the 3 for our mage armor, because obviously that will be in place beforehand. Our monster also has a speed of 30, so we don't have to worry about modifying that. The perception and stealth, that's just for your own thing. Any 4 languages, perfectly fine. Now let's go ahead and start adding in our values here. So we have a -1 strength, we have a 0 dex, 0 constitution, +6 intelligence, and then we have a +1 wisdom and a +0 charisma score. So right off the bat, we are definitely seeing 140 expected hit points. We are hitting the 13 AC that we have here on the character sheet, and we see that we are 1 under the expected minimum range. So that will likely be added into the character later on. Now that we have those in place, let's go ahead and move over to the rest of the traits and so forth for our monster. Well, in this case, a human. Alright, so we have arcane weapons, and this will add in an additional 3d8 for their weapons, which is included in the attack, similar to like angelic weapons and whatnot. We don't have to worry about it because it's already right here. Then we also have magic resistance. So our mage does have a trait that will affect its hit points. So let's go down into the tool here and take a look at magic resistance. This is found in the negatives column, and we click this and give ourselves a -5 hit point adjustment. Now, as we said before, also when we looked at the mage armor that will be cast ahead of time because it's an 8-hour spell or longer, I'm not quite sure in Tales of the Valiant, we have ourselves a -1 under the AC expected. So we'll go ahead and click that. And ironically enough, so far, we are balanced out. Because of the lower AC, we are giving ourselves a +5 hit point adjustment. And then with the magic resistance, we are giving ourselves a -5 hit point adjustment. So right now, we are totaled out to 0. Which is good because that is hitting the 140 that we are expecting from the monster, the mage's stat block. Now we'll move into our actions here. So our actions, we have 3 dagger attacks or 3 arcane bolt attacks. And we can replace 1 attack using with a use of spellcasting. So we'll take a look at spellcasting in a minute. If you want, you can obviously pause the video and take a look now. But we're going to jump right into our dagger. So first off, we have 1d4 plus dexterity. I think, no, we're using, we're doing dexterity because otherwise we would have a negative modifier here. So we'll go ahead and throw dex in for that +0 here, just giving us 2. But then because of the arcane weapons trait that our mage has, we're going to have to add in the 3d8 as well. So we'll do 3, and then we'll go ahead and put in a D8 here, giving us 13.5 because that's an odd number of dice, which is perfectly fine to see. Then we move down into the Arcane Bolt, and this is our ranged spell attack. Now, obviously, because this is a caster, we'll more than likely be using this for all of our attacks because our dagger is only a +3. And at the moment, it's very curious because our strength bonus plus proficiency is only a 2 at the moment. We have ourselves a -1 strength modifier, and with the proficiency bonus, we have a 2. So, that seems to be a bit off right there. This should be a 2, not a 3, as it seems. If we switch this to intelligence, we'll see that we're having a +9 with the +6 here. This indicates to me that our mage doesn't actually have like a 22 in intelligence. Technically, I think all general NPCs that are human based don't go above a 20 usually. So this means we need to bring this back down from a 6 to a 3, and then we give ourselves proficiency with intelligence here, which brings this up to a 6, and now we have our +6 intelligence, +6 here to hit with range attack spell, and then we also get 3d8 + 3 for the arcane bolt attack. So we'll go ahead and add that in, and then we will switch this to intelligence here, giving us 16.5, which is what we have here, 16 without the half die. We just round that away when we print the stuff out. All right, so let's go ahead and, before we get into spellcasting, go ahead and start adding in our attacks here. So for attack number 1, we're going to add in the dagger plus the arcane bolt, or not the armaments, the arcane weapon armaments. So we'll get 16 there, and then we have our arcane bolt here. So ironically enough, our dagger and our arcane bolt are going to do the same amount of damage, but the problem is that our 2-hit is much lower, which means it's not going to be hitting where we expect. If anything, we're supposed to technically have a 6 to 8 for our attack bonus for the dagger, but because it's not, and technically it should be higher, this would be part of the experimental phase, or the experimental section where we say like, oh, we should have more hit points if we're using a dagger, but the mage shouldn't be in melee and needing to use the dagger anyway, so this is just kind of flavor text here. If anything, actually, this could be an interesting something to loot from the mage. If a player or a group of players had to fight someone, they could find themselves with this kind of dagger. So this could be good for a rogue, per se, to grab as loot. So we have our arcane bolt here. We're going to go ahead and throw that all in, and just for the time being, let's take a look at what our mage looks like beforehand. So we can do 3 attacks, remember from our multi-attack, and we're going to do 3 of the arcane bolts. So times 3, we're going to go ahead and put that into concentration because it's going to result in the same number anyways, instead of going to rounds 1, 2, and 3. Concentration just says, okay, this is happening every round of combat. So at the moment, we are looking at an expected DPR of 44 to 49 with the arcane bolt 3 times per round, and staying in the background, just slamming these, we're hitting 49.5. So we're within range here. And if we look at all of the other hit point adjustments here, we don't have to worry about increasing or decreasing anything else because we have negatives here, which don't need to be adjusted, and we have a negative here plus a 0, so we don't have to add in anything here. Now if we look at our mage, we are seeing from the main stats here, everything looks good. 140 hit points, nothing needs to be adjusted because the lower AC counteracts the magical resistance, and our mage looks balanced. Now we move into spellcasting, and this is where things are going to be curious, so to say. So I haven't dived into the chart enough to make any kind of a correlation between damage per round and hit points right now. I'll have to look at that later on. I mean, right at the moment I'm seeing 10-point difference there, 5 here. It gets probably to a certain point where it's 20s and then 15s and so on. So I'll have to do some kind of analysis to see what the ratio is of how things change from a CR1 monster to a CR30 in the hit points and DPR, just to get an idea. So I can't really guarantee anything for defensive or controlling level spells. I did go into the chart for custom spells and found this, which is handy. So for instance, if we're using a cantrip, the cantrip should do 2 to 5 points of damage. If we have a level 8 spell that's controlling, it should do anywhere between 85 to 100 technical DPR. This is also being considered for regular attack spells as well. So in theory, we could say, okay, if we're using Mirror Image should be a level 1 spell. Let's take a look at what the DPR range here is. 5 to 15. We could say, all right, Mirror Image, we use that once. We could then say, all right, this will add in however much DPR and then make adjustments here and there. But in theory, defensive spells should probably increase the hit points one way or the other. But the big thing here is taking a look at Cone of Cold, which we can do once per day each, and Fireball twice per day each. Now, as we know, these are pretty destructive spells. For instance, Cone of Cold, which I have here from the player's guide that was just released. It's just like the standard Cone of Cold from 5th edition. This is 8d6 of damage. It has a 60-foot cone, so we're going to go ahead and say 8d6. Or 8d8 was it? Yeah, 8d8, my bad. So, excuse me, 8d8 for 36 points of damage. We're going to go ahead and put this into the multi-attack hit area. And that's going to result in 72 DPR for two saved and one failed save, or two failed saves, however it works. Doesn't matter. It's multiplying it times 2 because we're technically expecting, up to 4 passed or 2 failed. Those combinations, like I always say for 5th edition. And then we also have 2 uses of Fireball. Now, Fireball is our typical 66, I believe it was. Let's get it real quick. Okay, here's our Fireball at 8d6 fire damage, which has to do a dex save, and luckily our saves are right within range here. Our spell DC is a 14, and we are expecting... Oh, that's a false. That's really weird. If anything, it's right within range, so we're supposed to have a 14 to 16 spell save DC. I wonder why that's coming up false. I have to fix that. So anyways, we need 8d6, so 8 and then d6. We have 28 points of damage on a failed save, and then we multiply that by 2 failed saves or by 2 passes and 1 failed save for a total of 56 points of damage. Since these are the full range of their bursts and whatnot, we don't have to use the short range. And we'll go ahead and throw this in. Now, as I said before in the multi-attack, we can do 2 regular attacks and then 1 also cast of something from their spells. So if anything, we can drop the multi-attack down from 3 to 2. We will go ahead for the first thing and use Cone of Cold on round 1, provided that the grouping is good for that, which in theory we are expecting that to happen. And then rounds 2 and 3, we're going to throw in some fireballs. Might as well use these up because this mage is going to die one way or the other, more than likely. And then after 3 rounds of combat, they can haste, slow, greater invisibility, and get away, cast flying themselves, who knows. So, yeah, with just to reiterate again, with the first round of Cone of Cold, 2 fireballs, and 2 uses of the Arcane Bolt, we are looking at 110.5 damage per round, which is basically, this is more than double the actual expected DPR. So, let's go ahead and add that in. Now, we say for every 2 the creature's damage per round is above the maximum range for its CR, which in this case is 49, we divide that in half, or for every 2, so we will divide the difference, which in this case is about 60, divide it by 2, we get 30, we apply that, so 30 times -5, which means we are now subtracting 150? Yeah, we're subtracting 150% hit points. Now, if you remember your math from high school, you really can't go over 100% of something. Anything above that, and you're taking from something that can't give. So when we look up here, our mage is supposed to have 140 hit points, but if we go all out and use Cone of Cold and 2 fireballs, or just cast spells in general because we're supposed to be doing something here, we're at -70 hit points. I don't know what to do with this besides don't use spellcasting. That's the only thing I can say, because it's balanced for Arcane Bolt, but once you start flying and getting away from being attacked, flying is going to add in something. If you haste somebody else, that's going to technically add in more, DPR to the targets, slowing as well. There's no guidance for spellcasting in Tales of the Valiant, which is unfortunate because at the moment, there's no real way to say, how balanced this is, because technically we should be adjusting for this. If anything, in 5th edition, when the monster's attack bonus is so high, we have to go lower on the defenses, which means, the hit points have to be lower to counteract for that higher defenses. But because of the way we do everything here with the hit point adjustments, technically our mage should have 1 hit point because it can't kill itself with the magic unless they're, doing necromancy or something. This one is confusing. I don't know what to do with this. So, yeah, if you end up using the Mage for your Tales of the Valiant games, don't use the spell casting because otherwise it's not properly rated at CR6. That's the only thing I can say here. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me, and I really hope you've watched all the way through because this was a very special one. Until next time, have a great night, everyone, and I will see you then.